Didn't we all want a treehouse when we were kids? This is the adult version. Meet the gravity-defying Tentsile Stingray suspension tent.
In this hands-on review, I'm taking it on the road to see what it's like to set up, to sleep in, if it's comfortable, and what it's designed for. I'll wrap up with the pros and the cons and let you know if I think I can recommend this tent for you.
What exactly is a tensile tent? Tensile kind of turned the camping game on its head for me when I first reviewed the Tentsile Connect a couple of years ago.
Tensile tents are designed to be suspended between the trees, getting you off the cold, wet, or rocky ground for a more unique and comfortable camping experience. This makes the tents ideal for bringing along when you're not sure if you'll be able to find a flat, soft campsite.
The model I have today is called the Stingray. It's a triangular-shaped tent with room for 3 people and their gear to sleep comfortably inside, each along one edge of the tent. Amazingly, it can hold up to 880 pounds or 440 kilograms. These tents sure look cool. You're going to be getting lots of people stopping by your site to marvel at the engineering here. Speaking of which, let's get to how you set it up. To understand how, let's unpack the components. Inside the Tentsile duffel bag, you get 2 sets of items. There are the tent components and the suspension gear. There's the suspension tent itself, which is pretty big at about 13 feet or 4 meters on each side. You also get a rain fly and 2 tent poles. There's also 3 mesh gear lofts. Then there's the suspension components. That comes with 3 rolls of thick orange strapping with 3 ratchets. There's also blue felted tree protectors and some plastic screw pegs for pegging the fly. You also get a patch kit and an extra tent pole segment. The bag, when fully packed, isn't light, weighing about 24 pounds.
The Stingray tent here, like the Connect 2-person tent that I reviewed a couple years back, is easy to set up once you know what you're doing, and it is actually definitely possible for one person to tackle this solo. Now, with that said, it is a bit weird to do the first time, so try to allow some extra time to understand it before you arrive at your campsite.
First thing, unpack all of the parts and then lay the Stingray tent out on the ground so you can place it in the right space.
You're going to need 3 sturdy, older trees that are equally spaced around your tent so the straps can connect evenly. Now, the quick check here is that if every corner points directly at a strong tree, you're good. Otherwise, you can move the tent around until you find some good anchor points.
With the tent laid out, wrap each of your webbed straps around a tree trunk. Use the open loop and pull the end of the strap through it and then tug on it to tighten. If you're using trees with younger or more delicate bark, you can pad them first with those felt tree protectors. You'll want to place the straps at the approximate height you want them at, but you will have a chance to adjust them a bit before you tighten everything. Now, attach each of the ratchets to the corners of the tent. Wrap the loop end through the large D-rings on each corner of the tent and pull those tight. Then it's time to thread the strap into the ratchet.
Okay, so with your ratchet, you're going to grab your tree strap, feed it through the slot in the spindle, and you're just going to pull it so that it's tight. And you can do this to all 3 before you start to ratchet it tight and get it off the ground.
Tentsile recommends you keep the tent at a manageable height off the ground unless you also bought their add-on ladder. And if it's too high, you're definitely going to need to figure out some way to get into it later.
To begin tightening the ratchets, use the release bar in the middle of the ratchet to unlock it, and then hold the straps kind of taut. Use the handle to ratchet it back and forth, and it'll begin to take up the slack in your straps. It's a good idea to lightly tighten each strap first, then come back around and do another firmer cinch. When everything is really tight, you have to lock the ratchets, and don't forget this step, since if you do, the tent will give out unexpectedly. It happened to me just once, and that was enough. Push the lever of the ratchet down until the lock bar is sitting behind the stop. Next up, it's time to make your home. Extend the tent poles into the little sleeves and push them through each of the 2 channels all the way to the top of the tent. There's small plastic cups at the end to stop it, so make sure the poles are sitting in there. Then insert the other end of the pole into the cups just outside the tent, and now you've got a 4-foot-high interior treehouse. You can leave it as is or add the rain fly. The fly slips over the top and clips onto the ratchets with small plastic clips. You can peg the fly into the ground, but I found the plastic screw pegs were kind of ineffective in the Rocky Mountain soil I tried them in. Good thing then I was able to use the hooks on the fly to secure it underneath the Stingray tent.
One of the great things about this tent is that there's not going to be any climbing over people if someone has to get in or get out. That's because there's a door on every side of this tent. And getting in is actually pretty simple. As long as you can kind of get your butt into the tent, it's as simple as rolling in and getting comfy.
You can also use the central door to get in and out of the Tentsile tent as well. And if you did purchase a ladder, this is where you're going to hang it. The Stingray is also ideal if you have pets. Our two dogs, Kika and Rainy, were so curious about the tent, they couldn't wait to get inside. They were pretty freaked out, though, by the moving floor, so Rainy's visit at least didn't last long. And you don't need to worry about dog claws damaging the tent material. This tent is practically Kevlar, so I'm not worried at all about it. If you will have your dogs in here or you want to make the tent extra cozy, you can consider adding the Tentsile Stingray quilt. This perfectly fit quilted blanket covers the floor and secures with Velcro. It's a nice added bit of softness and insulation, and it keeps the central floor door accessible too.
You probably all want to know what it's like sleeping in the Tentsile Stingray. Sleeping in this tent is so comfortable. You have that kind of relaxed hammock feeling, but without the cupping. The floor of the tent stays fairly flat too, so you're not rolling into the other people.
One thing I will mention is that anytime someone turns over or gets up, you're all going to feel it. Of course, you can also just bring this Stingray along as kind of a hangout hammock contraption too.
Tensile tree tents are kind of like hammocks, but with more room to spread out and without that kind of burrito feeling you get from hammocks. And that's all thanks to 3 mounting points and a spine-like wide strap down the middle of the tent. Now, you don't feel this strap at all. It's really just there to provide stability across the bottom. That strap can be adjusted if over the years the material does stretch out a bit, but Tentsile sends it to you perfectly calibrated from the factory, so you shouldn't actually need to touch it.
Tentsile has been around for a few years now, and the company has continued to revise and upgrade their offerings. Now, in its 3rd generation, there are a couple of updates the 3rd gen tents have that are worth noting.
There are also detachable underfloor storage nets and zippable internal mesh pockets here in the corners. You also get felt tree protectors, and those are new as well. The rainfly has also been upgraded to be more water resistant than before while keeping its breathability. And there are now ground conversion kits available as an add-on, which are especially useful if you don't have any sturdy trees around. Overall, I love this tent. Let's go over the pros and the cons. On the pro side, it's fun, it's pretty easy to set up, and it is supremely comfortable, and it can give you a really great sleeping experience or just act like a campsite clubhouse. It's weatherproof and it can be warmed up with the addition of the quilt. It has doors on each side and the bottom for plenty of access options. It'll sleep 3 people, and it can even handle your dogs too.
I took this tent on 3 separate outings, and I always found a place to hang it, and we enjoyed it both for sleeping or just reading and relaxing in a nice, comfortable, screened-in area.
So what are the downsides? Maybe the biggest barrier for folks could be that setting it up for the first time might seem kind of intimidating, but trust me when I say you're going to get used to it. I found the plastic screw pegs that are included in the kit are kind of useless. I'd love to see a metal version instead. The other thing that's not ideal is that this tent weighs about 24 pounds in total, so it's not going to be ideal for people who are backpacking.
Even so, I think this tent is fantastic, and husband Roger and Kika do too. Rainy, though, is a work in progress.
I can definitely recommend the Tentsile Stingray suspension tree tent for you. It sells regularly for about $8.49 US or about 1,100 Canadian, but I have seen it on sale often. And if this might be a little too much tent for you, you can check out the smaller and lighter Tentsile Connect or see some other cool camping and outdoor gear right now.